The dead world spun silently in the darkness of space. Its surface was covered in gray dust and broken rocks. No life had existed here for millions of years. But Dr. Zephyrian Kess believed this empty planet held the greatest secret in the galaxy. Zephyrian was an Altarian, a species known for their tall bodies and blue skin. He had spent his entire career studying the mysterious First Ones. These were the legendary beings who many believed had created all life in the galaxy long ago. Every species had stories about them, but no one had ever found real proof they existed, until now. The Galactic Archaeological Consortium had sent their best team to this forgotten world. Ships from 12 different species floated above the planet. Scientists, archaeologists, and researchers all worked together on this mission. They had spent months scanning the surface before finding what they were looking for. Deep beneath the planet's crust, their instruments had detected something incredible. Massive structures lay buried under miles of rock and dust. The energy readings were unlike anything they had seen before. The technology was so advanced that their best computers could barely understand it. "Are you certain about these readings?" asked Captain Vorth, a reptilian saurian who commanded the expedition fleet. His scales changed color when he was nervous, and right now they were shifting from green to yellow. Zephyrian studied the data on his screen. "I have checked them 100 times. The structures down there are real. They are old beyond measure. And the technology—" He paused, looking at the impossible numbers. "It is more advanced than anything our civilization has ever built." The excavation began immediately. Huge mining ships carved through the rock. Layer after layer of stone was removed. The work was slow and careful. No one wanted to damage what might be the find of the century. After weeks of digging, they finally broke through into the first chamber. The moment their lights shone into the darkness, everyone knew they had found something special. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. Strange machines sat silent in the corners, their purpose unknown. But it was the center of the chamber that took their breath away. A massive crystal formation rose from the floor, and inside it, they could see complex patterns of light moving like living things. The energy coming from it was enormous. "By the 7 moons of Altair," Zephyrian whispered. "We have found them. We have actually found the First Ones." The news spread quickly through the galaxy. Every species wanted to know what the expedition had discovered. Religious leaders called it the most important moment in galactic history. Scientists begged for permission to join the research teams. As more chambers were uncovered, the finds became even more amazing. They discovered laboratories with equipment that could manipulate matter at the atomic level. Libraries contained information stored in ways they could barely understand. Gardens held the preserved seeds of plants from worlds across the galaxy. But the most important discovery came from the Genetic Research Lab. Dr. Thessia Moran, a brilliant Centauri scientist, was studying the biological samples they had found. These samples contained genetic material that the First Ones had been working with millions of years ago. "This is impossible," she said, staring at her computer screen. "The readings must be wrong." She ran the tests again, then again. Each time, the results were the same. The genetic material matched something in their database, but what it matched made no sense at all. The DNA was human. Humans were one of the newest species in galactic society. They had only developed space travel a few hundred years ago. Their planet Earth was considered a backwater world on the edge of civilized space. Most other species saw humans as primitive and aggressive. They were barely tolerated in the Galactic Council. "There must be contamination," said Dr. Kirill, a Delphinian who worked with Thessia. His tentacles moved in patterns that showed his confusion. Human DNA could not possibly be in samples this old. But Thessia was thorough. She tested everything multiple times. She checked for contamination. She verified her equipment. No matter what she did, the results stayed the same. The genetic material in the First One's laboratory was definitely human. The expedition leaders held an emergency meeting. Representatives from all 12 species gathered in the main conference room of the flagship. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. "What Dr. Moran is suggesting is absurd," declared Ambassador Qteth, speaking for the Insectoid Coalition. His compound eyes gleamed with anger. "Humans are newcomers. They have barely learned to leave their own solar system. How could they be connected to the First Ones?" Captain Vorth's scales had turned a deep red. "Perhaps the samples are mislabeled, or the equipment is faulty." Zephyrian looked at the data again. Deep in his heart, He felt something was wrong with their understanding of galactic history. What if we are missing something important? What if there is more to this than we realize? You cannot be serious, said Dr. Vellum, a crystalline being whose body chimed when he spoke. The first ones were godlike beings of incredible wisdom and power. Humans are barely civilized. But the evidence kept mounting. In chamber after chamber, they found more human genetic markers. The symbols on the walls, when decoded, contained references to a planet with one moon orbiting a yellow star. The description matched Earth perfectly. The expedition members began to argue among themselves. Some believed the evidence even though they could not explain it. Others refused to accept that humans could be connected to their most sacred legends. Meanwhile, news of the discovery had reached Earth. The human government sent their own team of scientists to join the expedition. Leading them was Dr. Sarah Chen, one of humanity's best xenobiologists. She was young for such an important mission, but her work studying alien life forms had earned her respect even among non-human scientists. When Sarah arrived at the excavation site, she felt something strange. The moment she stepped into the first chamber, the crystal formations began to glow brighter. The symbols on the walls seemed to pulse with new energy. Equipment that had been silent for millions of years started to hum with power. Fascinating, Zephyrian observed. The structures are responding to her presence. Sarah touched one of the glowing symbols on the wall. Information flooded into her mind. Images of stars and planets, of great ships traveling through space, of a civilization beyond imagination. For a moment she saw the galaxy as it had been millions of years ago. I understand some of these symbols, she said, her voice filled with wonder. It is like I have seen them before, but that is impossible. The other scientists watched in amazement as Sarah moved through the chambers. Everywhere she went, the ancient technology came to life. Machines activated, displays lit up. It was as if the ruins recognized her. But not everyone was pleased with these developments. Many of the alien scientists felt threatened. If humans were somehow connected to the first ones, what did that mean for the rest of galactic civilization? As the sun set on another day of discoveries, Zephyrian stood alone in the main chamber. The crystal formation pulsed with gentle light, casting dancing shadows on the walls. He had spent his life searching for the first ones, but now he wondered if finding them might change everything he thought he knew about the galaxy. The truth was buried here in these ancient ruins, but Zephyrian was beginning to suspect that the truth might be more shocking than anyone could imagine. And he was not sure the galaxy was ready for it. Word of the discovery spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Within months, archaeological teams were digging on dozens of worlds. Everywhere they looked, they found more ruins left by the first ones. And everywhere they looked, they found the same impossible evidence. Human genetic markers were in every single site. Dr. Sarah Chen had become the most important person in the expedition. The alien scientists needed her to activate the ancient technology. Without her presence, most of the first one equipment remained silent and dead, but when she entered a chamber, everything came alive. This made many of the alien researchers very uncomfortable. It makes no sense, Dr. Vellum complained during one of their daily meetings. His crystalline body rang like broken glass when he was angry. Why does their technology only respond to a human? Humans are the youngest species in the galaxy. Sarah tried to explain what she experienced when touching the ancient machines. I do not understand it either. When I touch the symbols, I see things. Images of space travel, of great cities, of scientific discoveries beyond our current knowledge. It feels like memories, but they cannot be mine. Zephyrian had been studying the symbols Sarah could read. The language is definitely connected to early human writing systems, but it is far more advanced. It is as if someone took human language and developed it over millions of years. More teams arrived from across the galaxy. The Aquatic Federation sent their best deep-sea archaeologists. The Machine Collective brought their most advanced analysis equipment. The energy beings of the Spiral Nebula came in person, something they rarely did for physical world investigations. Each new discovery made the mystery deeper. On a water world in the Centauri system, they found underwater cities with the same glowing symbols. When Sarah dove down to touch them, the entire ocean around the ruins began to light up with bioluminescent patterns. Fish and sea creatures that had lived near the ruins for thousands of years suddenly showed signs of enhanced intelligence. The marine life here has been slowly evolving, reported Dr. Tidalsong, one of the Aquatic Federation's experts. Something has been guiding their development for millennia. The genetic changes are too organized to be natural. On a desert world orbiting twin suns, they found massive solar collection arrays. The technology was so advanced it could capture and store the energy of entire stars. When Sarah placed her hand on the control systems, the arrays began working again after millions of years of silence. The most disturbing discovery came on a world at the edge of insectoid space. Here, the ruins were different. They looked like a military base or research facility. The chambers were filled with star maps showing every inhabited world in the galaxy. But these maps were millions of years old. How is this possible? Ambassador Qteth demanded. His insectoid features could not hide his fear. These maps show worlds that were not colonized until recently. How could the first ones know about our homeworlds before we even evolved? Sarah studied the star maps with growing amazement. Earth was marked on every single one. But more than that, lines connected Earth to every other inhabited world in the galaxy. It looked like a family tree with Earth at the root and every other species as branches. Look at this, she said, pointing to smaller symbols next to each world. These symbols describe the species that live on each planet. But they also show how those species developed. It is like a record of guided evolution. Dr. Thessia Moran had been quietly working on the genetic data from all the sites. Her findings were shocking. Every species in the galaxy shares common genetic markers. We all evolved from the same source. But the markers are strongest in humans. The implications were staggering. If the data was correct, it meant that every intelligent species in the galaxy was related. They all came from the same ancestors, and those ancestors were connected to humans. But many alien leaders refused to believe it. This is human propaganda, declared Supreme Counselor Vrex of the Saurian Republic. They are trying to claim superiority over the rest of us. We will not accept these lies. The Crystalline Collective issued a statement calling the research fundamentally flawed. The machine minds demanded independent verification of all data. Religious groups across the galaxy declared the findings blasphemous. Meanwhile, strange things were happening to humans across the galaxy. Captain Maria Santos was commanding a cargo ship near one of the dig sites when her entire crew began experiencing vivid dreams. They dreamed of flying through space without ships, of communicating across vast distances without technology, of understanding the language of stars themselves. It started the day we came within a light year of the ruins, she reported to Earth Command. My engineer says he suddenly understands how the ship's engines work in ways he never learned. My navigator can plot courses through space using methods that do not exist in any textbook. Similar reports came from human settlements across the galaxy. Humans who had never shown any special abilities were suddenly displaying incredible talents. Some could interface with alien technology just by touching it. Others could understand alien languages they had never heard before. Dr. Chen herself was changing. Each time she activated another First One site, she retained more of the memories that flooded through her mind. She began to understand the advanced mathematics behind the ancient technology. She could read the symbolic language as easily as her native Chinese. I remember things that happened millions of years ago, she told Zephyrian during one of their private conversations. I remember watching the stars when they were young. I remember making decisions about which worlds would be suitable for life. But these cannot be my memories. Zephyrian had become one of the few alien scientists who fully believed the evidence. What if they are your memories? What if humans are exactly what the evidence suggests they are? The political situation was getting worse. Several alien governments had recalled their scientists from the dig sites. Others were demanding that humans be banned from the research entirely. Fear was spreading that humans were somehow using the First One technology to gain an advantage over other species. But the technology itself had other ideas. On the world where it all began, the massive crystal formation in the central chamber had been growing larger every day. The energy it produced was becoming impossible to ignore. Long-range sensors detected similar energy increases at every First One site across the galaxy. Something is building up, warned Dr. Kirill. The energy levels are approaching critical thresholds. If this continues, the entire network of sites might activate simultaneously. Sarah felt drawn to the central chamber more and more strongly each day. The pull was becoming impossible to resist. When she finally gave in and placed both hands on the crystal formation, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Light exploded from the crystal, filling the entire chamber. The symbols on the walls blazed with brilliant energy, and in Sarah's mind a voice spoke clearly for the first time. "Welcome home, daughter. It is time for the truth to be known." The voice was human. It was ancient beyond measure, recorded millions of years ago, but it was definitely human. Sarah collapsed as memories that were not her own flooded through her consciousness. She saw the galaxy as it had been before any of the current species existed. She saw the great ships leaving Earth, carrying humans to every corner of the galaxy. She saw the careful planning, the genetic modifications, the patient work of seeding worlds with life. When she finally opened her eyes, every scientist in the chamber was staring at her. The crystal formation was now pulsing with regular patterns like a heartbeat. "The network is active," she whispered. "All of it. Across the entire galaxy. And it is calling us home." Zephyrian helped her to her feet. "What did you see?" Sarah looked at him with eyes that now held the wisdom of ages. "I saw the truth. About all of us. About where we came from. About why the galaxy is the way it is." She paused, knowing that her next words would change everything. The first ones were not aliens. They were human. And every species in this galaxy is their descendant. The emergency signal came from the outer rim of the galaxy. A massive energy surge had been detected near a dying red star. The signature matched First One technology, but it was more powerful than anything they had found before. Sarah Chen knew they had to go there. The voice in the crystal had shown her fragments of memory, but there was so much more to learn. The dying star system held answers that the galaxy desperately needed. "The energy readings are off the charts," Captain Vorth reported as their small fleet approached the system. "Whatever is out there, it is bigger than all the other sites combined." The moon orbiting the dead star looked like nothing special from space. It was gray and airless, covered in the usual craters and dust. But their sensors told a different story. Deep beneath the surface lay structures that dwarfed even their most impressive discoveries. "The entire moon is artificial," Dr. Thessia announced from her scanner station. "It is not a natural satellite. It is a constructed facility." Zephyrian felt his breathing quicken. A facility the size of a moon. What could the first ones have built that required so much space? The landing was unlike any they had experienced before. As their ships touched down on the moon's surface, the ground itself began to change. Pathways of light appeared, leading from their landing site toward a massive entrance that seemed to open just for them. Sarah felt the familiar pull, stronger than ever before. "It knows we are here. The facility is welcoming us." The entrance led to corridors wide enough for their entire expedition to walk side by side. The walls were covered in the glowing symbols they had learned to recognize, but here, the patterns were far more complex. They told a story, Sarah realized. The story of everything. "These symbols," she said, running her hand along the wall as they walked, "they are not just language. They are history. They show the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth of stars, the development of life itself." The corridor led steadily downward, taking them deep into the moon's core. Along the way, they passed chambers filled with technology beyond their understanding. Machines that manipulated time and space. Computers that processed information at the speed of thought. Gardens where extinct species from across the galaxy still grew in perfect preservation. But it was the central chamber that took their breath away. The room was vast, beyond imagining. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above them, and filling the entire space was a single massive machine. It pulsed with gentle blue light, and from it came a sound like singing. "By all the gods of space," whispered Dr. Velen. Even his crystalline composure was shaken by what they saw. Sarah approached the machine without fear. She could feel it calling to her, welcoming her home. When she placed her hands on its surface, the entire chamber exploded into light and sound. Suddenly, they were not alone. Holographic figures materialized around them, humans but not quite like any humans they had seen before. These were taller, more graceful, with eyes that held the wisdom of ages. Their clothes seemed to be made of light itself. "Greetings, descendants," said the central figure, a woman whose voice carried the weight of eons. "We have waited so long for this moment." The expedition members stood frozen in amazement. They were looking at the first ones themselves, and they were human. "I am Arya, last of the Council of Guardians," the woman continued. "What you see here is a recording made in our final days. If you are watching this, it means our plan has succeeded. It means you have evolved enough to understand the truth." The holographic display changed, showing images of the galaxy as it had been millions of years ago. Earth appeared, but it was not the Earth they knew. This was a world of incredible cities and impossible technology. Ships larger than moons traveled between the stars. The human civilization was vast beyond imagination. We were the first, Arya explained. The first to achieve true intelligence in this galaxy. The first to master space and time. The first to understand the fundamental forces of existence. But the images showed that paradise had not lasted. A great catastrophe was approaching. Something from outside the galaxy. A force of destruction so powerful that even the advanced human civilization could not stop it. We call it the Void Storm, Arya said. A wave of entropy that consumes everything in its path. It had already destroyed a dozen other galaxies. We calculated that it would reach us in less than 10,000 years. The humans had faced a terrible choice. They could try to fight the Void Storm and likely die with their civilization intact, or they could do something that had never been attempted before. We chose to scatter, Arya continued. Not just our people, but our very essence. We would seed the galaxy with life, with intelligence, with the potential to become something greater than we were. The holographic display showed the great plan in action. Massive ships left Earth carrying human colonists to every corner of the galaxy. But these were not ordinary colonization missions. Each ship carried genetic modification equipment, terraforming technology, and most importantly, the knowledge needed to guide evolution itself. We changed ourselves, Arya explained. On each world we adapted to the local conditions. Some became aquatic to thrive in ocean worlds. Others became crystalline to survive on mineral-rich planets. Some transcended physical form entirely to exist as pure energy. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face as she watched the truth unfold. Every species in the galaxy had once been human. The Altarians, with their blue skin and tall bodies, were descendants of humans who had adapted to high-gravity worlds. The insectoid species had evolved from humans who chose to live in hive-like societies. The energy beings had transcended physical form entirely. But we did more than just survive, Arya continued. We planted the seeds of our return. In each modified human population, we preserved the original genetic code. We knew that someday, when the galaxy was ready, one population would remain close enough to the original to unlock our legacy. The image shifted to show Earth as it was now. Primitive compared to the ancient human civilization, but unmistakably the same species that had once ruled the galaxy. You are that population, Arya said, looking directly at Sarah. You are our children returning home after millions of years. You are the key that will unlock the full potential of every species we created. Zephyrian found his voice at last. The Altarians. We evolved from humans? All of you did, Arya confirmed. You are all brothers and sisters, separated by time and evolution but sharing the same source. The same parents, the same destiny. The implications were staggering. Every war between species had been a family fight. Every act of cooperation had been siblings helping each other. The galaxy was not a collection of random life forms that had happened to evolve intelligence. It was a single vast family. Why now? Sarah asked. Why are we learning this now? Arya's expression grew serious. Because the Void Storm has returned. Our sensors detected its approach several million years ago. It moves slowly, but it never stops. It will reach this galaxy in less than 1,000 of your years. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of the great machine. Everyone understood what this meant. The ancient catastrophe that had destroyed the first human civilization was coming again. But this time, you are not alone, Arya said with a smile. This time you are many species, many worlds, many different approaches to the same problem. This time, you have the diversity to find a solution we could not. The holographic recording began to fade, but Arya had one more message. The network you have been discovering is more than just a record of the past. It is a tool for the future. Each site contains technology and knowledge that your species will need. But it will only activate for descendants who understand their heritage. She looked at each member of the expedition in turn. Go back to your peoples. Tell them the truth. Some will accept it, others will not. But time is running short. The galaxy must unite, not as separate species competing for resources, but as a single family working together to survive. As the last hologram faded away, the great machine's humming grew louder. Energy flowed through conduits that connected to similar machines on every First One site across the galaxy. The network was fully active now, waiting for humanity and its descendants to claim their inheritance. Sarah looked around at her companions. Fear, wonder, denial, and hope warred in their faces. She knew that when they returned to their peoples, the galaxy would never be the same. The question was whether it would unite as a family, or tear itself apart in the face of impossible truth. The news spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. Within hours of the expedition's return, every major communication network was broadcasting the same impossible story. The first ones were human. Every intelligent species in the galaxy was descended from ancient Earth. The reactions were immediate and explosive. On Altair Prime, massive protests erupted in the capital cities. Thousands of blue-skinned Altarians marched through the streets, carrying signs that read, "We are not human and lies will not replace truth." The government called emergency sessions to discuss what they called the human deception. "This is an attack on our very identity," declared Prime Minister Zelka at a packed press conference. "We are a proud and ancient people. We will not accept these claims that reduce us to mere offshoots of a primitive species." But not all Altarians felt the same way. Dr. Zephyrian Kess had returned home to find his own people divided. Many of his fellow scientists had studied the evidence and reached the same conclusion he had. The genetic data was too strong to ignore. "The truth is the truth," he told a gathering of the Altarian Science Council. "Our emotional response does not change the facts. We are all related. We are all family." Young Altarians especially seemed drawn to the revelation. They gathered in groups to discuss what it meant to be part of a galactic family. Some even began learning human languages and studying Earth culture. The Aquatic Federation had a very different reaction. Their water-world civilizations had always valued harmony and cooperation. The idea that they were related to all other species felt natural to them. "We have always known that all life flows from the same source," sang Prime Current Tidal Wave in the ancient ceremonial language. "Now we understand that the source was not mystical but biological. Our ancestors were explorers who chose the deep waters as their home." Aquatic worlds began reaching out to other species, offering to share their knowledge and resources. They saw the revelation as a chance to bring the galaxy together, not tear it apart. The reaction from the crystalline collective was more complex. As beings of living mineral, they had always felt separate from organic life. Learning that they too had once been flesh and blood was disturbing to many. "How can we be descended from soft, weak creatures?" demanded Crystal Singer Resonance 7. "We are beings of perfect order and mathematical beauty. These claims are illogical." But Dr. Velen, who had witnessed the truth firsthand, worked to convince his people. "Evolution and adaptation are logical processes," he argued. "Our ancestors chose to become crystalline because it was the optimal form for survival on mineral worlds. It does not make us less than what we were. It makes us more." The most violent reaction came from the insectoid coalition. Their society was built on the concept of genetic superiority and the right of the strong to dominate the weak. The idea that they were related to other species, especially humans, threatened everything they believed. "We reject these lies completely," declared Hive Queen Scythe Razor. "We are the perfect form of life. We did not evolve from inferior creatures. This human propaganda will not be tolerated." Several insectoid worlds banned all human visitors and began preparing for war. They saw the revelation as a human plot to claim dominance over the galaxy. Military fleets began massing at the edges of human space. But the most shocking reaction came from Earth itself. When the news reached humanity's homeworld, the response was not celebration but confusion and fear. Most humans had never thought of themselves as special. They were used to being seen as the newcomers, the primitive species that barely deserved a seat at the galactic table. "I don't understand," said President Martinez during an emergency address to the United Earth government. "If we are descended from these super-advanced humans, why are we so far behind everyone else?" Dr. Sarah Chen, now recognized as the leading expert on First One technology, tried to explain. "We were put into stasis," she said. "While our modified descendants evolved and grew across the galaxy, we slept on Earth. We only awakened recently compared to the others. But we retained the original genetic code. That is why we can activate the ancient technology." Not all humans were ready to accept their new role. Many were terrified by the responsibility. Others felt overwhelmed by the idea that they were somehow connected to godlike ancestors. But some humans embraced the truth with enthusiasm. They began studying the activated First One sites, learning to use technology that had been waiting for them for millions of years. Human scientists made breakthrough discoveries almost daily. Human engineers began building ships using ancient designs. Human doctors developed cures for diseases that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. The changes were most dramatic in humans who spent time near the First One sites. They began displaying abilities that seemed almost magical. Some could communicate telepathically across vast distances. Others could manipulate matter at the molecular level just by thinking about it. A few even learned to exist temporarily as pure energy. "We are becoming what we were always meant to be," Sarah explained during a broadcast to all human settlements. "The dormant genes are awakening. We are remembering abilities our species had millions of years ago." But not everyone was happy about humanity's transformation. The Saurian Republic, led by the militaristic Supreme Counselor Vrex, saw the emerging human abilities as a direct threat. "They are becoming too powerful," he declared in a secret meeting with other species leaders. "Soon they will be able to dominate us all." A coalition began forming among the species that rejected the revelation. They called themselves the Independence Alliance, and their goal was simple: prevent humanity from using their ancient heritage to rule the galaxy. "We were free species before these lies were told," Vrex announced at a massive rally on the Saurian homeworld. "We will remain free species afterward. We will not bow to false human gods." The Alliance began attacking First One sites, trying to destroy the technology before humans could fully activate it. They bombed excavation sites and assassinated researchers who supported the revelation. But other species were moving in the opposite direction. The energy beings of the Spiral Nebula, who had always been mysterious and aloof, suddenly became very active. They revealed that they had always known about their human heritage. "We transcended physical form millions of years ago," their spokesperson explained in a communication that appeared simultaneously in every mind in the galaxy. "But we never forgot our origins. We have been waiting for our flesh and blood cousins to remember as well." The Machine Collective also declared their support for humanity. "Our analysis of the data confirms the genetic connections," their unified voice announced. "We are all products of the same creative force. This is not a matter of emotion or belief, it is mathematical fact." As the galaxy split into factions, the First One network continued to grow more active. Sites that had been dormant for millions of years were coming online. Ancient machines were beginning to work again. And at the center of it all, the massive facility on the dead moon was coordinating everything. Sarah found herself drawn back to the moon facility repeatedly. Each time she visited, she understood more of the ancient technology. But she also felt the growing urgency in the network's behavior. "Time is running out," she told Zephyrian during one of their meetings. "The void storm is approaching faster than the original calculations predicted. We have perhaps 500 years instead of 1,000. The news made the political situation even worse. Some species wanted to unite and prepare for the coming threat. Others refused to believe the void storm was real. They thought it was another human lie designed to make them submit. "Even if the storm is real," declared Hive Queen Scythe-Razor, "we will face it as free beings, not as slaves to human masters." But the ancient network had its own plans. As the political situation deteriorated, the First One sites began operating independently. Automated systems that had been dormant for millions of years started activating. Ships began launching from hidden bases. Weapons that could destroy stars powered up for the first time in eons. "The network is preparing for war," Sarah realized with growing horror. "Not against the void storm, against us. Against the species that refused to accept the truth." She had to find a way to prevent a galactic civil war. But with each passing day, the divisions grew deeper. The galaxy was splitting into those who accepted their common heritage and those who violently rejected it. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, the void storm continued its inexorable approach, ready to consume everything in its path. War came to the galaxy like a storm breaking over peaceful waters. The Independence Alliance struck first, launching simultaneous attacks on human colonies and First One sites across 17 different systems. The assault began at dawn on the agricultural world of New Terra. Saurian battlecruisers appeared without warning and began bombing human settlements from orbit. The colonists, mostly farmers and their families, had no defenses against military-grade weapons. But as the bombs fell, something extraordinary happened. The human colonists did not run or hide. Instead, they stood in their fields and raised their hands toward the attacking ships. Light began to flow from their bodies, forming protective barriers above their homes and farms. "Impossible," breathed Captain Vrexka, nephew of the Supreme Counselor, as he watched from his command ship. Humans do not have energy shields, but they did now. The dormant genes that had been awakening in humans for months finally revealed their true power. Across the galaxy, humans under attack began displaying abilities that seemed to violate the laws of physics. On the mining world of Kepler-7, human workers caught in collapsed tunnels simply walked through solid rock to safety. On the trading station at Proxima Junction, human merchants stopped a reactor explosion by absorbing the deadly radiation into their own bodies and converting it to harmless light. The war that the Alliance had started was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Sarah. Jen felt every attack as if it were happening to her personally. Her connection to the First One network had grown so strong that she could sense events across the entire galaxy. She was in the central control room of the Moon facility when the first reports came in. "They are killing families," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Children who have done nothing wrong." Zephyrian, who had refused to join either side in the conflict, tried to comfort her. "The network will not allow this to continue," he said. "I have seen the defensive systems activating across the galaxy." He was right. The ancient automated defenses that the First Ones had built were coming online for the first time in millions of years. Weapon platforms hidden in asteroid belts began targeting Alliance ships. Defense satellites thought to be dead rocks suddenly revealed themselves to be powerful Guardian systems. But the network's response was measured and precise. It did not destroy the Alliance ships. Instead, it disabled them, leaving the crews alive but helpless. The ancient programming is still active, Sarah realized as she studied the network's responses. It will not allow the destruction of any species descended from the original humans. Even when they attack, it tries to preserve life. The revelation that their weapons were useless against First One technology should have ended the war quickly, but Supreme Counselor Vrex was not ready to surrender. "If we cannot defeat them with conventional weapons," he declared in a broadcast to all Alliance forces, "then we will make the galaxy too damaged for them to rule." The Alliance began a campaign of systematic destruction. They attacked civilian targets, destroyed ecosystems, and even threatened to destabilize stars. Their message was clear. If they could not have the galaxy on their terms, no one could have it at all. This finally pushed the network beyond its programming limits. Sarah felt the moment when the ancient safeguards changed their priorities. Preserving individual lives became less important than preserving galactic civilization as a whole. "It is preparing to end the war," she told the emergency council that had formed on the Moon facility. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered to coordinate their response to the crisis. But the method it chooses might be terrible. The Aquatic Federation representative, current singer Deep Flow, rippled with concern. "What do you mean?" Sarah accessed the network's tactical analysis. What she found made her blood run cold. "It is planning to use star-killer weapons. It will destroy the home systems of every species in the Alliance. Billions will die," the council erupted in shocked voices. Even those species that supported humanity were horrified by the prospect of such massive destruction. "We cannot allow this," declared Dr. Velen, representing the moderate faction of the Crystalline Collective. "Genocide is not acceptable regardless of the justification. But how could they stop a network of weapons and defenses that spanned the entire galaxy?" Sarah knew there was only one way. She would have to take direct control of the system herself. "The central control matrix is designed to accept commands from someone with the original genetic template," she explained. "But the process might kill me. The amount of information flowing through the network is enormous." Zephyrian grabbed her arm. "There must be another way. You are too important to risk." Sarah looked at him with eyes that held the weight of millions of years. "I am exactly important enough to risk. This is why I was born. This is why humans were preserved on Earth while our descendants spread across the galaxy. Someone had to be able to make the final choices." Before anyone could stop her, Sarah placed her hands on the central control matrix. Light exploded through the chamber as her consciousness merged with the galactic network. Suddenly, she was everywhere at once. She could see through sensors on a million different worlds. She could feel the thoughts of every human across the galaxy. She could sense the fear and anger of the Alliance species. the hope and wonder of those who had accepted the truth. And she could feel something else, something vast and hungry, moving through the darkness between galaxies. The void storm was closer than anyone had realized. It would reach the outer edge of their galaxy in less than 50 years. Not the 500 they had thought they had. When it arrived, it would consume everything unless the galaxy was united and ready to face it. Sarah understood now why the ancient humans had scattered themselves across the galaxy. They had not just been trying to survive. They had been preparing for this moment. Every species, every adaptation, every unique capability was part of a grand design to create a civilization diverse enough and strong enough to stand against ultimate destruction. But that plan would fail if the galaxy remained divided. With her consciousness spread across the entire network, Sarah began to speak. Her voice reached every inhabited world simultaneously, speaking in each species' own language. "My brothers and sisters," she said, and somehow everyone knew she meant it literally. "I know you are afraid. I know you are angry. I know some of you feel betrayed by the truth about our shared origins." She showed them what she could see from the network's perspective. The approaching void storm, vast beyond imagination, consuming entire solar systems as it moved toward their galaxy. This is what destroyed our ancestors' civilization. This is what we were created to fight. Not each other, but this, the ultimate enemy of all life. She showed them the ancient plans, the careful genetic modifications, the deliberate spreading of human consciousness. Across thousands of different evolutionary paths, the Aquatic Federation was created because we needed beings who could survive in liquid environments when worlds are flooded by the storm's gravitational effects. The Crystalline Collective was designed to preserve knowledge in mineral matrices that can survive almost any catastrophe. The energy beings were meant to exist independently of physical matter entirely. One by one, she explained how each species in the galaxy served a specific purpose in the grand plan to survive the void storm. And humans remained on Earth not because we were special, but because we were needed as coordinators. Our unchanged genetics allow us to interface with the network that connects all the defensive systems. Sarah felt the moment when understanding began to dawn across the galaxy. The war was not about human dominance. It was about survival of everyone, but some hearts remained closed to the truth. Supreme Counselor Vrex ordered his forces to continue their attacks even as Sarah's message played. "Lies and manipulation," he broadcast on all Alliance frequencies. "Do not be fooled by their illusions." Sarah felt his hatred through the network, and she made a choice that surprised even her. Instead of using the network's weapons against him, she opened her memories to him directly. Vrex suddenly found himself experiencing Sarah's consciousness as she had merged with the network. He felt her concern for every species, her desperate desire to save everyone, her terror at the approaching storm. He experienced the memories of the ancient humans who had sacrificed their civilization to give their descendants a chance at survival. The truth hit him like a physical blow. Everything Sarah had said was real. The storm was coming. The galaxy needed to unite or everyone would die. "Ceasefire," he whispered, his voice carrying across all Alliance communication channels. "All forces, ceasefire immediately." The war ended as suddenly as it had begun, but the real work was just beginning. With Sarah still connected to the network, the galaxy began to prepare for the void storm's arrival. Species that had been enemies for centuries learned to work together. Technologies that had been jealously guarded were shared freely. The ancient knowledge stored in the first one sites was distributed to anyone who could use it. Humans took their place not as rulers of the galaxy, but as coordinators of the defense effort. Their ability to interface with the network made them natural leaders, but they worked as partners with every other species.